We have new polling, and it is remarkable. It has been 15 years since Americans were as optimistic about the future of the country as they are today. Two new polls again confirm some things that we already knew. Americans largely approve of Joe Biden's performance as president so far. But the polls were also asking about American optimism more generally. And an ABC Ipsos poll finds that almost 2/3 of Americans are optimistic about the next year. Americans have not been this optimistic about the year to come since 2006, per the same ABC poll. A second poll released by Yahoo News and YouGov finds that 57% of the country approves of Joe Biden's handling of the pandemic. When asked if Biden's performance was better, worse, or the same than expected, the plurality, 39%, said Biden's doing even better than expected. 28% said worse. 24% said about what we expected. And overall, Joe Biden has a 54% approval rating. Now, you and I might see that and say 54. That's not so good. That's not a very high number. Remember that Donald Trump never hit 50%, even on a single day of his presidency, and was plagued by approval in the 30s for the most part, and even 29% when he left office. So this is a change for sure. Now, in terms of the country being divided, this is interesting and not great numbers for Joe Biden. 28% of Americans believe that the country is more divided since Joe Biden took office. 23% believe it is, 23% say more divided. 28% say less divided. That is interesting because everybody's blaming Biden. The people that think the country is more united think it's more united because of Joe Biden. The people that think the country is more divided also think it's more divided because of Joe Biden. But what's clear is that overall politics has become a lot more boring, and people seem to be okay with that. Now, fascinatingly, there was the assumption that because things would be boring under Joe Biden, shows like the David Pakman show wouldn't do well. In fact, there were gleeful Trumpists saying, David, when Trump is gone, your show will be circling the drain, which is a phrase we've been hearing for 15 years and we keep growing. But put that aside for a second. I assumed we would see a decline in viewership. Corporate media has seen a big decline in viewership since Trump has left. But then something I really don't understand happened, because I was prepared for like a full year of really things being pretty slow. In late March, then early April, mid-April, April just finished, the numbers came back very strongly. There were no Biden scandals, nothing in the Biden administration even coming close to the insanity of the Trump White House. And yet that dip we saw, that we see after every election in January and February and early March, it's almost completely recovered. We were back up to 30 million views in April, 12 million views on Facebook. These are like 2020 numbers once again. So I'm curious what you think is going on, because things are kind of boring in a sort of from a salacious evaluation type standpoint. TV networks are reporting significantly lower ratings. Trump, no doubt, was good for ratings. And yet we're almost back to where we were in December, which was a record month. Not all the way, maybe 85% of the way there. If you look at what did best in April, there's some Trump stuff in there that's left over, that he's still doing things. But it's a lot of other things. Clips about right wingers who just call into the show to talk to me did really well. The Matt Gaetz scandal got a lot of attention. Critiques of right wing media framing did well. Reporting on some of these corporate scams, Foxconn and others, coverage of the Derek Chauvin trial, stories about vaccine conspiracies and other things. At this point, there's like 7 or 8 different general areas of content that are doing very well. So something is going on. It's not only that people are more optimistic than they've been for 15 years. They're optimistic, but they're also not tuning out. If it bleeds, it leads. We know about that. If people are satisfied and complacent rather than panicked, they tend to watch a lot less news. But yet people are watching almost as much of the show as they were in December. The most optimistic interpretation I have is people recognize that things are going in the right direction, but realize that if we tune out now and not pay attention to what's going on, maybe we get Trump or something like him back in 2024. The real explanation could be anything. I'd be curious to hear from you. Why is most of that election peak audience already back? Let me know your thoughts. You can find me on Twitter @DPakman. Very interested in hearing from you.